Hello, and welcome to an emergency news broadcast from Midnight Launch. Today, we're talking about roller coasters. I'm David.
And I'm Dan.
And we're talking about roller coasters, and we're talking about crowdfunding, and we're talking about the ups and downs of both of these. Oh my god,
I see what you did
it's
there.
so much worse the second time than it was the first time that we had to delete because it was a terrible take. Oh my goodness. So we're talking about Rollercoaster Tycoon, which is a game where you make roller coasters, I guess.
It's a park management game, yeah, where you'll think Sim City, but it's a theme park. You can put down flat rides, you can build roller coasters, you build concession stands and whatnot, and you just try to make a profitable theme park.
And the last one came out, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, so Rollercoaster Tycoon World was kind of a reboot of the franchise because it had been 12 years since Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 had come out. So Rollercoaster Tycoon World comes out 2 years ago and pretty much falls flat.
Right. Critically panned.
Yes.
Terrible game from what I've read. Not something I played. I'm not really the roller coaster type. You, however, absolutely love these titles.
You know what? I loved 1 through 3 with a passion. I remember picking up 1 and 2. God, I would have been in junior high at the time. And on days that I had off, I would literally get up, get onto the computer, and just play Rollercoaster Tycoon all day, and then panic because I would see that my parents were about to come home, so I'd have to go and jump and get in the shower.
Pretend you were working, do your homework, etc.
Oh no, not even that, because it would just be days off, right? Like regular, like over Christmas kind of thing.
I see.
But either way, so we'll say 2.5 years ago, Atari comes out and says, hey, we're making a new Rollercoaster Tycoon game, and Rollercoaster Tycoon fans around the world rejoice.
Yes. It's amazing, but it's not.
And then it came out.
Yeah.
It came out. So I think the main problem is that they put it out in this new trend of early release.
Right.
The game isn't finished yet, but they want to get it out there. Basically, use players as beta testers.
Right. That they're the players pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, pay for an opportunity to play our unfinished mess of a game. That way, we don't actually have to pay real testers to figure out what's going on.
Exactly. Now, I mean, I don't mind early release games. Especially if going into it that it's early release. And it's not to say that Atari and Invisio, I believe, is the company or the actual developer that made it. They didn't hide the fact that this was an early release product. It lost that feeling of Rollercoaster Tycoon. The visuals were not where fans believed that they should be. Case in point, I just loaded it up because I was one of those early adopters of it, and it's rough. Yeah. It's super rough.
So the early release thing that you're talking about, that is one of the few odd ways that people are now purchasing video games.
Yes.
The second one is, of course, crowdfunding, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit more of today. So Atari Game Partners, which is, of course, a subsidiary of Atari. And this is the group of, I guess, developers that is responsible for basically Atari's, brands of the past, their legacy brands, the brands that they're not currently using. They have announced that they are going to create a brand new Rollercoaster Tycoon. It's coming to the Switch. And of course it's coming to the Switch because the Switch is, it's the big hotness right now. It is outselling the PlayStation 4 within, the 9-month time frame that it's been out. It outsold the Wii within the first 10 months. So it is, it's everywhere right now. And Atari wants in on some of this action. So they're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and make a new Rollercoaster Tycoon. But they're funding it in an extremely odd way.
Well, and I mean, not even that. It's Rollercoaster Tycoon is an odd choice to bring to a console. You typically don't see park management, or even city builders on console. It's pretty rare,
Right.
for them to come out. So not even discounting the crowdfunding side of it. I thought it's an odd choice to bring to a console.
Yeah, I think if you are going to bring it to a console, though, maybe the Switch is the best one because it also does have the touchscreen. So I can definitely see you kind of like drawing the lines for the roller coasters and then, maybe pulling up or pulling down on the screen in order to... go ahead.
Well, it's funny because right now I'm staring at the crowdfunding page, and the backsplash that they have for it, or the big banner image that they have for this game, is actually taken from Rollercoaster Tycoon 4, which was a mobile-only title. And that's exactly what you did in that game to make roller coasters, is you basically drew the path with your finger.
Right.
And it looked janky as hell. Like, anybody go, it's you can find it easily just by looking up Rollercoaster Tycoon Switch or Rollercoaster Tycoon funding. You can find the site and just look at that banner and just look at the roller coaster that they have on that screen.
Right.
Like, that thing would break your neck.
So we want to talk about Rollercoaster Tycoon, but I'm actually really interested in also talking about the way that they're funding this.
Yes.
Because it's the first time I've ever seen something like this. Usually when someone is crowdfunding a video game, you go to their website, you give them, $25, you get a copy of the game, $50, you get a copy of the game, and, some other knickknacks here and there. Yeah. And then, it just goes up and up and up. If you want to invest in Rollercoaster Tycoon, and I use the word invest intentionally, the minimum amount that you can, I guess, quote unquote, pledge is $250. All right. And you give them your $250, and on the back end, once the game has been released and once it is selling, you are actually going to get that investment back based on the profits from the sales of the game. So this isn't, I'm giving you money to send me a game when it's ready. This is, I am investing in this title with the expectation of a monetary return.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is because even if you invest the 250, you don't even get the game at the end of the day.
No, don't. You still have to buy the game, but if you invest $750, you get 25% off a single copy.
Woo!
Oh, good. That almost seems insulting. Like, how can they not send, the person that invests $750 or $250 a free game?
Agreed. And I mean, I guess the way that they're looking at it is, you invest this amount of money, you're theoretically going to get your $250, at a minimum back, plus, I believe, it's another
25%
over 18 months.
18 months, right?
Yeah.
After you've gotten your 120% investment.
So back. Theoretically, you could take the money that you make out of it and buy it.
Right, or you can look at it as, the people that are investing in this title are the people that are probably also going to be the ones buying this title. So you're basically paying back everybody else by buying the title. Like, it almost seems like this giant pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way of doing it. And it's not like video games are like this in general for crowdfunding. I've, crowdfunded a space shooter that, albeit, has yet to see the light of day.
Oh, God. What's the name of that game again?
Well, you know what? It's not the one you're thinking. But
that's Star
Citizen.
Oh,
So Star Citizen, it's that one. That is, I don't know. I never invested in it, so
well, release date sometime in the next couple decades. We'll see.
yeah,
Whenever
exactly.
they get around to it.
But the one that I crowd funded was called Starfighter Inc. It's going to be basically a multiplayer space shooter. I haven't looked at what their timelines were recently, mostly because I put the money in like a year ago
Yeah, kind of just forget
and,
about it.
and just forget about it at
Yeah,
this point. It could be a total loss, but that's kind of the
I mean that's the risk you
risk
take.
in crowdsourcing
Yeah,
or crowdfunding. So
absolutely. So let's dig in to this the way they're running this crowdfunding. A lot of other sort of YouTubers have covered this, but they've taken a very macro view on it, kind of just saying, okay, here's what's going on. I don't know how many of them have actually went into the offering memorandum that Atari Games Partners has actually released. And there's some really, really interesting details within this memorandum. And, I've pulled a couple from them. We'll actually have a link to it down below. So if you want to read, 50 some odd pages of legal jargon, you can go ahead and do that. But I did want to cover a couple of things. So first off, revenue participation rights terminate 18 months after the commercial launch of the game. That makes sense, right? Because you're getting paid 25% for 18 months after release.
yeah, and let's be honest, the most amount of money that a game's going to get is probably in its first year to year and a half, anyways.
Absolutely. Well, now here's the awkward thing. Their license, or rather their sub-license for Rollercoaster Tycoon expires in June 22nd of 2022. So if this game is delayed, for more than a year or a year and a half, they're saying they're going to release it holiday this year is the release window that they're aiming for. That to me seems like a very quick turnaround, but we'll see. If it ends up getting pushed back, you might not actually get 18 months in which the game is on shelves where you can kind of get that investment back.
Yep.
Because that sublicense ends 2022. Once that ends, they can continue selling digital copies of the game for 1 month after, and they have 3 months after that to clear out any physical stock. After that, that is it. Any further sales of the game goes to Atari main company rather than Atari Game Partners. So that's one of the things, and that's one of the I guess the risks that people that are looking into this need to realize. Another one is they're saying basically 45% of the gross income for this game is already divvied up. So you've got 25% automatically going to Atari Interactive as part of a royalty for the Rollercoaster Tycoon license. All right, so 25% already gone. Another 20% is going towards, expenses, marketing, development, and then more royalties, maybe when it comes to royalties for using an engine or anything like that. So 45% of the returns from this game, they're already gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so that's another thing people need to be aware of. There are a few other things. Here's another interesting one. So they're doing this through a partner platform called Start Engine, and for every investor that they get through this Start Engine quote unquote Kickstarter, $100 automatically goes to Start Engine. So that's $100 in net receipts that is going to get diluted per person that invests in this.
I mean, they already have 47 investors as of right now.
Right. So $4,700 of that, I think it was $22,000.
25. So I mean, they're basically
25,000. So
They're down to just over 2,000 at that point.
right. Um, so 20% of what they've made is going directly to Start Engine. And then here's another one. And this one is expected, but this one might be the one that worries me most. They put in there that right now they are at an operating loss. They're obviously not making any money. They haven't released a game recently. So they're in the red. And currently, Atari Capital Partners is providing them monetary funding. Okay. And these advances that ACP is providing, Atari Capital Partners, they're going to be paid back through the funding that people are donating right now. Okay, they've already been given $25,000. So if we look at how much they've raised, which is about $25,000, we take out Start Engine's cut, which is about $4,000, $4,700. They're still in the red, $5,000.
Yep.
And here's another thing that I think people need to think about. The bigger this gets, the worse it is for the people that invest in it, because the payout is going to have to be divvied up between so many more people.
Yeah.
And we know it's not going to be a situation where for every person that invests $250, it's going to end up selling an additional 5 copies, which would be basically the only way to sort of recoup the fact that there's now another person in the pool to which these payments are going to be going. So, man, I don't know. This is just wild to me. I never thought I would see something like this.
Yeah, and there's one more that I found, which seems to be the one that most fans are choking on pretty hard, is the irregular use of proceeds.
Okay.
And that is, we might incur irregular use of proceeds that may include, but are not limited to, the following over $10,000. Vendor payments and salary made to oneself, a friend, or relative. Any expense labeled administration expenses that is not strictly for administrative purposes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Any expense labeled travel and entertainment. That like travel. Now, what I could see that being is going to like E3, Gamescom.
Sure.
Although
I wonder if that would be covered under marketing. I feel like
maybe.
That could probably fall under marketing.
It could be,
but maybe not. Who knows?
And the very last one, any expense that is for the purpose of intercompany debt or back payments, which is basically what we just spoke about previously.
Right.
So I mean, there's some weird ones in there for sure, like expenses labeled administration expenses that is not strictly for administrative purposes. Like that basically just kind of sounds like a dump fund.
Yeah, I don't even know. I was talking to a friend about this earlier today, who's a little bit more business savvy than I am. And one of the things that he brought up about this is you are investing in, basically you're investing in the game, a little bit less so than the company. And, when you invest in a company on the stock market, these companies, they're expected to operate a certain way under certain guidelines. And there's an expectation that any action they take is in the fiduciary interest of the people that have invested in that company.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the same, or at least it doesn't seem the same to me, as what's going on here with this Rollercoaster Tycoon crowdfunding.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of red flags that this throws up for me. Now, yes. I'll be the first to say that they might be red flags brought up out of ignorance, because this is something that is very new to the gaming industry as a whole. This is the first time we've seen something like this that I know of.
Yeah, well, more that it's targeted towards the people who would most likely be buying the game as well.
Right. This is so weird, and I don't know how people are gonna make back their $250. I just don't see it happening. I don't know that Rollercoaster Tycoon has that big of a market.
Well, you know what? There is a surprisingly big market, and Frontier Games has proven that with their game Planet Coaster. Like
Okay.
that game right now for any park management style game is like the gold standard right now.
Okay.
So there is a huge community out there. Frontier has done well enough with all of its games in general that they were able to put on their own convention this past fall.
Right.
So and Rollercoaster Tycoon being one of the primary games that was able to let them do that.
Right.
Or sorry, not Rollercoaster Tycoon, Planet Coaster.
Planet Coaster. So we have Rollercoaster Tycoon, and I don't know when Planet Coaster came out, but I do feel like when it was Rollercoaster Tycoon 1, 2, and 3, they were kind of the only roller coaster game in town. Is that correct?
For the most part, there were other like theme park games,
Okay.
but what kind of stood out or made Roller Coaster Tycoon stand out was the fact that you could design your own roller coasters. And in the 1 and 2, it was all basically a grid system.
Right.
You had very specific pieces that you would use to be able to make the roller coaster, its turns and whatnot. Once it got to number 3, then it became a little bit more fluid. You could, change the actual angles and the banks to whatever angles and, bank angles that you wanted.
Right.
And that is continued today with Planet Coaster, which actually, funny enough, Planet Coaster, made by Frontier Developments, is also the company that made the very, very well received Roller Coaster Tycoon 3.
Right. So let's take into consideration a couple things in terms of how, sort of the topography of the video game market, specifically the roller coaster simulator, has changed. Number one, Roller Coaster Tycoon, not the only game in town anymore.
Yeah.
Number two, they're coming off of a bad release, critically
Yeah.
panned. Number three, Planet Coaster doing extremely well, also extremely community driven.
Yes.
They seem to respond very well to their community. Take notes, Bungie.
Like they have a couple of community managers that they do at least 2 YouTube live streams a week alone. And if you watch them, they are just phenomenally done. They respond to the fans in the games. They may not respond to everybody, but their one main community manager, Bo DeVries, is just phenomenal person, very great at responding. So it makes that really nice community feel like that us as gamers have a connection to the company itself.
Right. So we've got all this. So they're already coming into a market that, they kind of got bucked out of by Planet Roller Coaster. Roller Coaster Planet. What's it called? Planet Coaster. Man.
Yes.
And Planet Coaster. And on top of that, I think we can both agree it's a little bit of a niche market.
It is.
They're releasing it on the Switch, which, while, yes, it has sold 10 million units already, as far as in comparison to all of the other current gen consoles, it has still sold the fewest.
Yes.
So, niche market, technically niche console.
Well, and it's interesting because when I initially thought about it and I go, this is not a great game for a console, I also look at it and go, Planet Coaster has basically closed the door on them ever making a console port.
Right.
And it's not because they don't want to take the time to do it. It's basically that Planet Coaster itself requires just way too much computing power
Okay.
to be able to be well used on a console, because like even I've got a halfway decent system. I mean, I can't list off the specs right now, but even it starts chugging a little bit after, the one park that I've been building for the past little bit. It
Right.
starts chugging after a little bit. So if my PC's starting to chug, I can't imagine that it would do too well on a console.
Dan, I walk up to you and I say, man, I've got this great opportunity for you to invest in. Might make back 120% of your investment total. And then I hand you this Atari offering document. What are you going to do?
I'm gonna say no thanks. I'm gonna go play Planet Coaster instead.
Yeah. And, if the same thing happens to me, I'm just walking away. Look, if you want to invest money, there are better places to do it that are far more regulated than, some super awkward crowdfunding, website that no one's ever heard of. And if you want to support Rollercoaster Tycoon, I think there are better ways to do that than by risking, your $250. What you should have been doing the entire time is, firing up at Atari on Twitter saying, hey, when's the next Rollercoaster Tycoon coming out?
When are you gonna fix Rollercoaster Tycoon World? Or if you really enjoyed playing Rollercoaster Tycoon 4 or Rollercoaster Tycoon Touch,
Yeah.
like I've played games where they were free to play and free to download, and if I really enjoy them, yeah, I'll do some microtransactions because
Yeah.
I want to show some support for that company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, I don't know. It's weird. It's a very strange time that we live in as far as video games are concerned.
Indeed.
And this doesn't even take into account some of the other large titles that have been doing things similar. Shenmue 3, chief among them, comes
Yep.
out at E3 on the PlayStation, floor, says, hey, we've partnered up with PlayStation. We're going to create an amazing game together. And then says, by the way, we're going to do crowdfunding. It starts taking money from people.
Yep.
And
Yeah, they started their crowdfunding campaign like right after that announcement.
yeah, right after the announcement, the website went up. I haven't been following it very closely because I was certainly not one of the people that crowdfunded that particular video game. But from what I understand, development has been anything but smooth on that video game.
Right.
And people at this point are wondering, is this game going to be able to live up to the expectations of Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 1?
Well, and then you've got games like Star Citizen, which was supposed to be out like 2 years ago.
Star
2 years
Citizen
ago?
is...
I'm starting to believe that it's going to be vaporware.
I mean,
But,
they've released
Vapor,
parts of the game, from what I
Oh, have they?
understand. Yeah,
Okay.
they've been incrementally releasing segments of the full game. So, at some
okay.
point they released the ability to fly around in space. And then there was a release where you could, kind of jump into your ship and walk around. And I think recently they released one where you can actually go down to planets. So it's becoming a game.
Oh, okay.
But it certainly didn't hit that initial launch date.
Well,
I think. Go ahead.
I mean, it's not like these games that take forever and never see the light of day. We never thought that the Duke Nukem game, what was it, Duke Nukem
Duke Nukem
Forever,
Forever.
was ever going to come out. It was like what, 10 years in development, and I mean, it probably would have been better off not coming out. But
Hey man, at least we're gonna get a movie out of it, right?
oh my
I
god,
don't know if you heard about that. We'll see.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It could be amazing. Guys, that's what we've got for you today. This was supposed to be a short video, but it's sitting at 30 minutes long now. I guess we had a lot to say about this particular topic.
I guess.
I'd love to hear your opinions on, video games and crowdfunding and pre-release video games being sold on the PlayStation Store and on the Xbox One, early release, etc., etc. I'd love to hear your opinions on it, because I think this particular route that video games are taking is not good for the industry as a whole.
No. And also, give us, if you're somebody who absolutely loves Rollercoaster Tycoon World, let us know as well. Maybe let us know if there's something that particular that I myself, at the very least, have been missing out of it. If you agree and you love Planet Coaster as well, let us know.
Yeah, if you're that one person that plays Roller Coaster World, we'll see you in the comments. All right, guys and girls, thank you so much for listening tonight. Hope you were entertained, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, guys.